One interesting thing about the ego is how it likes to swell with pride. Have you ever been in a situation where someone looks at you and says something like, "You have beautiful eyes," and you think, "Wow," as if you deserved credit for the compliment? It's interesting to me when someone comes up to me and says, "You are the spitting image of my Uncle Fred." And I might be thinking, now his Uncle Fred might be ugly. But somehow I don't think that. I swell with pride that I look just like his Uncle Fred. The ego wants to take credit for everything. It is amazing the greed the ego has. One symptom of the ego's greed is its feeling that it is not acknowledged enough. But if my hand picks up my glasses, do I think, "Thank you, hand, for picking up the glasses"? Suppose my hand wanted to take credit for everything it did. What if I was painting a picture and someone said, "You did a beautiful job"? If the hand said, "What about me? I did all the work," I would have to say, "No, hand, it was not you. It was the arm. Without the arm, you could not work." So then the arm would swell with pride, and I would have to tell it that without the brain, it would not operate. And without the love of painting, the brain could not operate. And it goes on and on and on. Where does the credit go? Who does the work of art? Suppose you do a good deed for your neighbor, and the neighbor says, "That was so kind of you. You are such a loving, wonderful person." And your ego starts to swell with pride. But there's something inappropriate about that reaction, isn't there? Now, suppose a person says, "Well, it wasn't me. It was God. It was the power of the love. There was a universe who did it." What would the reaction be then? The reality is that all good that happens in the world is done by the Creator, the Lord, the higher power, through people. Our higher power gives the lower orders of creation the feeling that we are doing good, and we get to have this wonderful sense of participation, and it is God or the universe that is actually the good that is being supplied. There's a wonderful parable in the New Testament in which Jesus talks about the master and the servant. And when the servant comes in to eat, the master says, "Feed me first and then feed yourself." So when the servant feeds the master, Jesus says, "Does the master thank the servant because he did what he was supposed to do? So likewise, you, when you have done all these things which are commanded, say, 'We are servants. We have done that which it was our duty to do.'" So how can you take credit for doing any good thing in your life? Does that question ring true for you, or does it leave something left out? Aren't you supposed to thank one another? How do you feel when people thank you? You feel like they appreciated what you did, right? And then if they lean over and they say, "You don't really get it. I'm thanking you because you did a wonderful thing." Well, that can challenge us, throws us off balance a little bit when people thank us that much. We know in our hearts that what we do is actually an action, but the goodness comes from God. What if you go to the opera with someone and they say to you, "I want to thank you for going to the opera. It was so good of you to go to the opera." I would say, "Now, wait a minute. I didn't go to the opera to get brownie points, to look good. I went to the opera to enjoy it." So if you applaud, there are some cultures, the Russian culture is one of them. If you applaud the performers, they applaud back. Why? Well, have you ever been in a position when you've done something and you have felt like clapping? There are many things involved. It's a complex issue, but one thing going on is gratitude that other people appreciate what you have done. And now you want to show back to them that you appreciate that they felt that they got something good. Now, what happens is that the ego comes in and messes this whole beautiful appreciation of goodness and messes it up, and we begin to think that we are the good, or we have the good or the source of good. The ego has an insatiable appetite for praise and glory. It is interesting to watch ourselves and not get caught up in this thought that I deserve this, or what do I get out of this, or am I getting enough praise? These are ego demands. The opposite of taking credit is taking blame. So consider this related emotion, the fear of being blamed. Along with craving credit, the ego fears blame and criticism. Consider a person who's afraid to talk in public because they'll feel ashamed that they do a bad job of it. What is the assumption behind that? That somehow we're always supposed to be brilliant and good looking and do it perfectly. And if we're not brilliant, if we're not perfect, we will be blamed, we will be criticized, and we won't be liked. That's the ego's fear. So both sides of this emotional coin, pride and fear of criticism, can cripple our ability to gracefully accept gratitude and criticism. In reality, it is a simple privilege to be alive and a privilege to serve. The musician plays music from a love of doing it, right? We may have to work at getting good at something, and we may, be encouraged by the praise and the glory we get along the way. But later, inevitably, we come to do this thing, playing music or singing or doing our work, because it's useful, because there's goodness from God in it. So in this spiritual level, you find after a while that you do something for someone because you love it, which means you are shifting to a higher level where the love of doing good is more powerful than the love of being rewarded for doing it. You are rising out of the basement where the ego is into this, even all the way to the top where God's love is. So the task this week is to look at the ways in which our greedy ego tries to take credit for things, and to observe how you react when you feel you're not getting enough credit or when you fear blame. There's 3 tools to do this task this time. The first one is to observe your reactions when you are not given the credit you feel you deserve. So think about a time when your hard work was not recognized by others or rewarded with gratitude. What emotions came up from your basement? Did you feel injured or slighted? Notice if you have a love for praise as a reward. Can you replace it with gratitude for the opportunity to serve? Skill number 2, examine your reactions to blame, the opposite of praise. How have you felt when you were unfairly blamed for a failure or oversight? Which of your beasts tried to take control of your reactions? Did anger, fear, or jealousy enter your mind and drag you down? And the third skill, remember your reactions when you were praised. Recall a time when you received praise. Did you swell with pride? Did that pride make you forget how others contributed to your success? Do you often like to take full credit for good work? Take a moment now to let go of credit and thank your higher power for the goodness that flows through you. The task is to observe your lower nature trying to take credit for what you say and do. Notice resentment because you are not getting sufficient recognition. Observe self-satisfaction when you are praised. When you become conscious of either of these states, say in your heart, "This praise does not belong to me. Give God the praise."